Mrs. Toy, I did my sketches. Great, let's see them so I can give you a star.
Awesome. 4 sketches.
Can I have clay now? Yeah, sure, let me cut you some. If you want to protect your clothes from the dusty clay, I'd grab an apron. I would advise you to take off any expensive rings that you have just so the clay doesn't get caught in them. Once I give you your clay, be sure to wedge. This will expel any air bubbles that may be in your clay. When you get your clay, try not to play around with it too long because between your hands and the table, it will suck out the moisture from the clay and your clay will become really hard and super craggly. After wedging, try to make a clay sphere. It's kind of like packing a snowball. You can pinch, roll, cup, however you can to get that clay sphere. Once you have your sphere, you're going to start the quote-unquote pinching part. So press your thumb in to create a hole in your sphere and just start pinching. Make it into a bowl shape or whatever shape is going to go along with your creature. Mine's going to be a cat. So I have it roughly into the shape that I want, all hollowed out on the inside. This is going to be my main body part. My cat's going to be laying down. Again, it's all hollowed out. And then right here I have the head, and I'm going to need to hollow this out or else that will explode in the kiln. I'm going to use my ribbon tool for this. Now I need to connect the head to the main part of the body, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Using your pin tool, you're going to scratch or score the 2 connection areas. After scoring, you're going to apply slip. So slip is super wet clay, if you remember, and it's basically the glue of ceramics. Apply the slip to both of the connection areas. Once your slip is applied, now you can fuse the 2 pieces together. Again, the whole point of scoring is instead of trying to put 2 smooth pieces of clay together, you kind of create a textured surface so that when you fuse or chink the clay together, it stays and it's much stronger. So one of the requirements is smooth detachments. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to smooth this right here to make it look more like a neck and not just a connected sphere. So I'm taking these little pieces of clay and I'm just going to smooth them right onto that seam. Now you don't really need to scratch and attach these because they are going to be so integrated into the piece. Now here's where your wood modeling tool is really helpful. You can kind of knit some of those pieces, smooth them out, some of the areas that are hard for your fingers to get into. Now I'm going to start attaching legs and arms and how to start a leg. If you're doing a regular leg, you can do a coil like this and just kind of start shaping it however you want it. Since it's a leg, I kind of want it to be thicker up higher and then kind of taper down. So how I can do that is I can kind of flatten this a little bit and then roll just this end part so it gets a little bit thinner at the bottom, something like that. Now I can kind of decide how I want to have it. Since it's going to be a little cat laying down, I want something like that. Of course, I'm going to fix it though. So I scored and slipped the leg on, but again, craftsmanship, I need to smooth this out make it look like it's actually growing out from this and it wasn't just attached. I'm actually going to add a little more here. I think there could be a little bit more clay to show some of that leg mass. So I'm just going to scratch and attach this on here and then smooth it out.
Just a side note, when you are attaching things, you want them to be close to the main part of the body. You can't really have things sticking out far. This is why. So I just did this really quick. If you have something like an arm sticking out this far, it might stay for a little bit, but once it dries and you just pick it up or try to move it around, it'll break right off. So if there's any way to keep things close and have multiple areas that it's attached to, that's much better and way less fragile once it becomes bone dry. Okay, so what I've done, I have obviously this leg. I added a little more clay to make it look more like a paw. I got the tail going on. I added some shoulder definition, I guess, where that bone would be. And then this little arm and paw, and then this back paw, right? Back paw and arm. Right now it looks like a creepy human with a tail sleeping. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add some clay here for a muzzle. So kind of like a cat, so it's gonna come down a little bit, and the ears. It's not a perfect sphere.
My cat's going to be sleeping, but I'm still going to add the indentation where the eye sockets would be.
Next thing I'm going to do are the ears. So again, kind of sticking to the same idea. I can't just stick something on its head, way far out without kind of supporting it. So if I want something that high, I can do it, but I would need a lot more support down here. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the ears kind of bigger, but I'm going to make sure that they have a nice solid base on the head. So I have my ear shape, but it's pretty thin and it probably won't stay even if I scratched and attached it on just like this. You can see it would kind of break off pretty easily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scratch and attach it on, but then I'm going to add some clay to the back. So I'll put that on there, scratch and attach it on, and then kind of smooth this out. Okay, so I got my cat, and honestly, it's looking more like a Chihuahua. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to make the face a little bit wider by adding little bits of clay and just kind of smoothing that on to make it wider, more like a cat face. Added a little bit more clay, tried to smooth what I added, and I kind of shortened the nose a little bit because it was starting to even look like a fox. I can kind of smooth things over and start adding some of the finer details like nose, eyes, even the separation of the paws. So I did some of the detail in the face, and I used my pin tool to kind of carve away the mouth and the nose, and you can see all of those ugly clay boogers that I cannot stand. How you can fix this, you can use your wood modeling tool. Take them off with your finger, but then with your clay modeling tool, just kind of smooth that over. When this dries and it becomes bone dry, these are what these toothbrushes are for, because you can kind of scrape that out and clean it up really nice. But for now, we'll just try to get as much as we can and leave some of the smoothing details for when it's a little bit drier or leather hard.
So I'm at a pretty good spot. I still have a lot of cleaning up to do because you can see all the clay boogers all around. But that will be a little bit easier to get with the toothbrush. One thing I do want to do is from the bottom, I want to scrape out a little bit more clay because it feels pretty heavy right now and it's going to take a really long time to dry, and that increases the chances of it exploding in the kiln. So I'm going to take that ribbon tool, this tool right here, and scrape some from the bottom. Another part that I definitely need to mention is the head of my cat is hollow. So if you remember, that sphere is hollow. And I need to create a hole so that the air can escape and not explode in the kiln. What I can do is insert my pin tool and move it around to get rid of some of that clay and just create that opening so the air can escape. I can even take my ribbon tool, insert that just to get a little more clay out of the way. I'm going to take another precautionary step and I'm going to start poking holes. This will help it dry out faster so the air can reach in there. And I'm going to poke those holes in all of the thicker areas of my pinch pot just to be safe. This again helps it dry faster, and you could poke a little hidden air bubble that maybe you missed. One of the later things you will do is add texture. I will be adding texture to my cat's body and face. Since it's a tabby cat, I'm going to use this texture as the stripes on my cat. And the very last step you want to take before allowing it to become bone dry is put your name. This is worth points. Put the year too, just because it's cool. Have you sanded that yet? Oh, no. So until your artwork is finished and 100% ready to go into the kiln, I want you to let it dry out in the storage cabinets. You can put your artwork on the cart when it's completely dried out and sanded. So you can see my creature is bone dry now. It's lighter in color, it's shrunk just a little bit, and it's super fragile right now. And I'm going to clean it up. The only time that you can sand your clay is when it's bone dry. You can't do it when it's wet because it'll scratch it, and you can't do it after it's been fired because it's too late then. What I'm going to use to smooth out my creature is sandpaper. I'm also going to be using a toothbrush. I just ask that when you sand, you do it over the trash can. For the sake of the video, I am going to be sanding at the table, but don't follow in my footsteps. Don't forget that your clay is really fragile in the bone dry stage, so be really gentle and super careful with it. Okay, now for the smoothing process. The sandpaper is really good for large areas and it's super gritty, so it can get all of those little clay boogers out as well. I would start with the sandpaper just so you can get some of the larger clay boogers. Then it's nice to follow with the toothbrush just to do the overall smoothing. Okay, this is why I want people to sand over the trash can, because this is clay dust just waiting to get into the air and into our lungs. Really cute. When you finish sanding, you can grab one of these brushes and just take off some of that clay dust. Okay, so I've sanded my artwork, it's ready to go, but there's one more step that I need to take.
I need to take my artwork to the photo backdrop and take some photos. Not only are these photos before it's been fired required, but it's also proof of your work just in case something happens during the kiln firing. So if someone's artwork explodes in the kiln and ruins your artwork and you didn't take photos, you are going to have to start all over. So you've sanded down your artwork, you've taken photos of your artwork, and you've placed your finished artwork on the greenware cart. Your work is done here for a little while, and all you have to do is wait till it's fired.